Hey, you guys, welcome to episode 4 of the Tony McNabeau Show. This is a tricky one. So this is a 3-part episode. The reason for that is there is a story that I've been wanting to tell really in depth for a lot of years, actually. Maybe a story that I've been needing to tell in depth for a lot of years. I never really had the outlet to do that until now with this podcast. And there's a lot of reasons that I've needed to do this. And there's one reason that I want to do this right now. All of these things are going to sort of reveal themselves as we go along here, okay? But here's how it's going to break down. I want to tell you right out of the gate, part 1 is sort of atypical. I want to tell you that part 1 is not particularly funny. It is not going to be particularly happy, but it is, I think, meaningful. And it's also important in how I get us through and into parts 2 and 3, which I promise lighten up considerably. And I do sort of get back to the way I normally do things around here. Okay? So just bear with me through this if you can. We can do it one of two ways, actually. Like, if you're one of those people who just can't stand to hear a person sort of become emotional or choked up in their storytelling or anything like that, if that makes your skin crawl, it makes you uncomfortable, maybe it fucking pisses you off, I don't know. But I understand. Okay, I get it. I understand. This is not an admonishment on you. All I'm saying is we're like a minute and a half in. I don't want to waste any more of your fucking time. All right. You don't want to be here for this. You should fucking scram right now and just move along to part 2 when everything kind of lightens up. I'll leave some cliff notes for you. You'll be fine. All right. Otherwise, this is a recording from 3-4 nights back. When I sort of decided that I wanted to tell this story. And what I was realizing at that time was just there is no way to lead you to this place that we're going, which actually is a place of really profound beauty and of gratitude and pure joy and triumph. And there's just no way really in earnest to get you there without going through this first part. All right. And I've listened back to it, and what happened was in telling this story, I ended up in a really sort of vulnerable place. It led me to a place of like bare naked emotion. And I'm not sure that I like the way that that sounds to me. I'm not sure how comfortable I am sharing this, and I've really wrestled with it for a few days. And ultimately, I've decided that I am going to because I think there's a greater lesson in this, something that is more important than whether or not I'm comfortable with it. And like anything with me, whether it's songs or storytelling or conversation or writing, I'm not going to lead you into a dimly lit place without providing a light in the process. Okay? And so that's sort of how I chose to tell this. Now, you'll notice in the description that there's some links. Each part of this episode is going to have links in the description that are specific to that particular part, things that are going to help explain this story further, things that are going to humanize things a little bit for you, things that are going to help you to place yourself in some of the spaces that I'm trying to describe. All right? So I guess let's just get into it if you're with me. I hope you'll take something out of this, all right? At the core of it, at its very least, it's just something very honest. And I'm just going to let it be what it is. I'm not doing any editing, no post-production, no funny fucking music, none of that. This is just going to be raw footage, and I'm going to let it be what it is. This is the story of the experiences I've had and the things I've learned alongside one of the most remarkable people I'll ever be lucky enough to know. This is the story of my life, of my friendship, of my walk with Travis Roy. I regret 3 things in my life, and honestly, I feel fortunate for that. And by regret, I don't mean like that sort of like sitting around a fire having beers with your friends and, you know, that girl you didn't talk to, or that, you know, that like little trivial thing that you didn't do. When I'm talking about regret, I'm talking about like the pit of your stomach that makes you nauseous, sick, regret type of shit, okay? 3 things in my life that I regret. One of them I'll never speak a word of. The other one I'll probably talk about somewhere down the road. And then the third one I'm going to talk about in this episode, because if there's something that I can leave and teach and try to impart some kind of wisdom about, it's this. I had a great, great, great friend growing up. His name was Travis, and I met him in the second grade. We played youth hockey together, and then as we grew older, obviously we played high school sports together, junior high sports. We were great friends. And my freshman year of high school, I made one of the biggest, most boneheaded mistakes of my life. And I made it for the dumbest fucking possible reason. Travis and I were both driven equally by two different things. Travis was a great hockey player. Travis was very driven to play pro hockey. I was a musician. That was my thing. That separated me from all of my friends and my brothers and everything else. That was what my thing was. That's what I wanted to be, and I was driven by it. Travis and I shared a ton of mutual friends. Some of those friends I love just as much as I love Travis. But everybody started that thing that you do in 8th grade and freshman year in high school where, everybody starts getting into smoking weed, drinking, trying all this shit, like just trying things out. And Travis and I were unique and similar in the fact that we didn't want any of that stuff getting in the way of what our goals were. We both had goals and we wanted those things, and we knew that that was some shit that could get in the way. So we didn't partake in that stuff. So I'd go to parties with my friends. Everybody would start getting fucked up. People would be tripping. People would be, getting fucking drunk and all this stuff. And then usually like around 10 or 11 at night, we're talking like summertime as kids. And I'd say, okay, this is where I check out. And I'd leave and I'd go and I'd meet Travis, usually like 11 o'clock at night on any given night. And what we would do is we would go to the hockey rink. We were lucky enough that his father managed the hockey rink in the town that we were from. So at like 11 o'clock at night, we would go over, he had the keys, and we'd go to the hockey rink and we'd either skate, and just like pass the puck around, shoot the puck around, or we'd just go upstairs to the arcade and we'd just play video games until, midnight or 1 a.m. And then we'd go home, and all the rest of our friends were all getting fucked up, and we'd just kind of spend this time, and it was valuable, so freshman year came around, soccer season, and everybody wants to be accepted by the upperclassmen. I think that's a natural thing in high school. Any kid that gets to high school, boy, girl, you want to be accepted by the upperclassmen. You want to do whatever. And I never had that. I don't know. For some reason, that's never been a part of my spirit. I don't have that in me. I'm just me. And I've never had it in me to try to like change or act otherwise or to be somebody that I'm not. And I think that's been a gift, and I think it's been a detriment now that I'm way later on in life. There's been times where if I just could have fucking rolled over and played the fucking game, hypothetically speaking, my life probably would have been a lot easier. But I don't have it in me. And now at this point in my life, I'm taking that for whatever it is. I'm who I am, and I'm fucking what I am, and um, I'm either gonna be okay with that or I'm not. And the big thing is I don't give a fuck either way. I'd love it to be okay, but I'm pretty used to it not being okay. So if I have to deal with that, then I have to deal with that. Whatever. But way back freshman year, I watched Travis kind of like conform to this thing and started, like a big thing in the town that we were from. Everybody was into the fucking Grateful Dead. Man, I fucking hate the Grateful Dead. At least at the time I did. I could give a disclaimer about that now. There's like 5 Grateful Dead songs that I actually really like a lot. Okay, Broke Down Palace, Box of Rain, Broke Down Palace, Box of Rain, Addicts of My Life, All on American Beauty, and Unbroken Chain, and High Time. All of those I think are fucking phenomenal songs. I actually fucking love them. Okay, but I hated the fucking Grateful Dead when I was in high school. I was a metalhead. I was into all kinds of different shit, but one thing I wasn't into was definitely the Grateful Dead. And Travis wasn't into anything. Travis had the shittiest taste in music of anybody I've ever known in my life, still does. And he only owned 2 records, and I remember this. He owned Belinda Carlisle, right? Remember Belinda Carlisle? She was the singer from the Go-Go's. She went solo around the time that we were in high school. She had that Heaven is a Place on Earth song. Travis loved that song. Dude has the worst taste in music of anybody I've ever known in my life. So he had Belinda Carlisle, and the other shit he had is If It Couldn't Get Any Worse. Oh, it can. The other shit he had was Rick Astley's record with Never Gonna Give You Up and all of that. Rick Roll. He had Rick Astley, but at least with Rick Astley, I knew that he only liked Rick Astley because there was this girl that he was crushing on really hard who liked Rick Astley. And he only wanted to know those songs so that she thought he was cool and maybe he could get a little action out of that, which he did, by the way, so good for him. But otherwise, his taste in music was awful and he wasn't really into anything. But all of a sudden he started wearing these Grateful Dead shirts, tie-dyes, all these things where he was trying to conform and become palatable to the upperclassmen so that he could gain favor from the upperclassmen. And me being as close with him and being as unique as I was in I loved our relationship that we had where we were both kind of against the grain. All of our friends were doing these things and we were sort of like, nope, we're going to stay focused on what we're doing. And I needed that. And he kind of split off and started just sort of like doing whatever he thought was going to make everybody else happy. And so what I did, like a shithead, is I stopped talking to him that year. We spent that entire soccer season, summer sessions, all through our freshman year playing soccer. And all through that entire school year, I didn't speak to him. Right? I thought, what a fucking poser. And me, like I was into like a lot of like punk stuff and hardcore stuff and like skate stuff. Like the worst thing you could be is a poser. That was the fucking worst thing you could be to me, right? And I just wouldn't tolerate it. And I was mad at him, I think, for making me now feel like I needed to do now I was just alone. Now I didn't even have that other guy. So I didn't speak to him. In the hallways at school, I would pass right by him. I'd look at the ground. I'd look in the opposite direction. I mean, it was straight up silent treatment. Our coach noticed it. He put us in like similar groups. You have skins and shirts, and he'd break us off like to pair off to play passing drills and stuff like that. And I'd do the drills, but I wouldn't say a word to him. It was just stubborn. It was stubborn. And I just had this axe to grind, and I wanted him to know how mad I was. And I just didn't talk to him that whole entire year of school and life. Sophomore year came around. Somewhere around that summer, we buried the hatchet and we went back to, summer nights. We would go to the rink. We'd go down to the soccer field, which wasn't far from his house. We'd kick the ball around. It was basically constantly, it was a cycle of I'd go with my friends that all were getting into all of this shit, and I'd hang out with them for as long as I felt comfortable, and then I'd break off from that and I'd go and I'd meet Travis, and we'd just do whatever. By our senior year in high school, there was this dock off of Chebeague Island in Maine, and there was like a ferry terminal dock, but at night there was nobody there. It was dead. And that became our spot. And Travis and I, instead of going to these parties and, drinking and all this stuff, we'd either go to the rink and we'd skate around or do our thing, or we'd go down to this dock and we would just sit and we would talk about life. And that's like my favorite thing to do now, obviously, is to like sit and just talk with my friends and like, speak your heart, listen to somebody else's heart. And sometimes it's a debate. Other times it's just a great experience to share with each other and have this conversation. And Travis was like, he was like really intensely anxious about death, I remember. And we'd sit on this dock and we'd talk about death and we'd talk about the afterlife. And I'd try to like be as good of a buffer as I could be and comfort as much as I could be, but also like try to find these scenarios that might make him more comfortable or whatever. But we would go to this thing, we'd talk about our most very, very, very most vulnerable things. And I mean, like that goes for every topic that you can think of. We shared our most vulnerable things. And that became our sort of lot. That was our thing. We did that every night, every summer. And then college came. And he went to Boston University. I joined a band and I started touring. And I was gone for 200 days a year plus out on the road touring all around America, 19, 20 years old. And Travis went to college at Boston University, and I was home in the fall when Travis played his first hockey game. I had two mutual friends who went to Boston University. Now, this is going to date me a little bit, but back then it was payphones. All these dormitories at these colleges had payphones, and that's how you communicated with each other. I'd call Travis, I'd call all kinds of different friends that had gone off to college every week, and you'd call the payphone, some random fucking asshole would answer the phone, and you'd say, "Hey, is Travis Roy around?" And they'd say, "Who's that?" You'd have to describe them, and then they'd ask other people, and then eventually the phone would get passed over. So you see what I'm saying? It's like nothing like now. It was like everything was communicated on payphones. There was no internet yet, anything. But he had made the hockey team, right? Here I was out touring with this band, driving around America, 19 years old, touring, playing shows every night. Travis went off to Boston University, who at the time was like the NCAA championship, like defending champion team, like one of the most sought after programs in all of America. And he made the fucking team as a freshman. Okay. So here we were all these years. We kind of turned our cheeks to all this partying and all this stuff that all our friends were doing because we had these fucking goals in mind. And here we were, both of us we were hitting them. Like it was happening. And we had this deal, we had this plan, like, someday, he was going to play for this team and I was going to be playing in this band and I was going to play at the stadium that his team, his home stadium, and he was going to come to my show, and then I was going to go to his game the following night on a night off, and we were just going to run this thing. And at this point, we had it all fucking lined up. We both were right on our projected path to do it. So I was home in October, and it was opening night for Boston University's hockey season, and Travis had made the team, and he was dressed as a freshman, which is like unheard of. I remember that summer before the Toronto Maple Leafs and the New Jersey Devils, I remember both of them being in his kitchen trying to pitch to him to forego college so that he could just enter the draft, and they wanted to fucking draft him. Like, he had pro hockey teams trying to court him. And he wanted to go to Boston University because we grew up in a small fucking town, and he wanted to like be in a city and experience that and push himself and challenge himself to have to learn new things. So he did. So here I am, I'm home that night. His game is on this like really small little, TV network that we have shitty cameras, shitty angles, but it's what we had. But they were televising that game from down in Boston. I was in Maine. He was playing down in Boston. My friend Marshall also went to Boston University. And I started watching this game. And Travis came over the bench in his first shift. And I felt like, like my heart like jumped up into my throat. Like my heart just wanted to jump right out of my body. I was like, and he went into the corner and went to throw a body check. And, a lot of people who like know about hockey and have played hockey, like you want to, get yourself going. It's pretty common to want to get out and throw like a big body check and get yourself into the game. And it's the first thing he did was go in to make a body check. And well, ironically, like this dude had been on skates since he was 2 years old. He was such a fucking good hockey player. I mean, like elite, like it was insane the things that he would do. He had been on skates since he was 2 years old. And ironically, he caught an edge when he went in to make that body check. And that sent him sort of like headlong, straight ahead into the corner of the boards. And he hit his head. And then he just collapsed to the ice. He just flopped out like a pancake. He just laid there. And no one really knew what was going on. It just, everything got really quiet. And I'd seen Travis get hurt a lot. Like, we're good enough friends. And I don't have any problem saying that he was kind of a pussy. And he knows that I feel about as much. He got hurt a lot. It's like we saw that a lot. And his father really had no tolerance for that. Like his father fucking hated when he'd do that. And he would never let him like lay on the ice. He'd say, get up, get to the bench, get up and get to the bench. And that was like sort of like his MO. So he's laying there and I don't really know what's going on. It's just the people that are televising the game don't know what's going on. Just everything's fucking quiet. And there's my friend. He's just laying on his face, on his stomach, flat out in the corner. Then his dad came out after like 7 or 8 minutes of laying there. And I could see his dad talking to him. I didn't know what his dad was saying. But that's when I knew something was like really fucked up. Because he just wasn't getting up. So I started calling that payphone my friend Marshall's dorm, hoping that he was watching it from his dorm. And I talked to Marshall, and Marshall seemed really distraught, and he was trying to figure out what was going on. Everybody was sort of talking about it around the dorm. And they carried Travis off in a stretcher. I was really, very like upset, stressed. I had no idea what was going on. I had no way of getting in touch with Travis or anybody in his family at that time. It wasn't like things are now. And I waited an hour again, and I called Marshall back, and Marshall said that he was hearing the reports from the hospital that his legs weren't working. And that was very upsetting, obviously. I was looking at the fact that, he's not going to play hockey again. He might not stand up again. He might not walk next to me again. All these things. And I hung up the phone. I went outside. I was back from tour and I was at my parents' house, and I didn't want to trouble them with anything, but I kind of became a mess that night, and I was just walked around my neighborhood, and I was crying a lot. And I was thinking about my friend not having his legs anymore, and being in a wheelchair and wheeling himself around in a wheelchair, and not being able to play hockey anymore, not being able to watch him play hockey. And all these things I was thinking about that night. And I thought about the doc that we always went to. And so it's very sad, and it was a very, very difficult night, but I eventually went to bed. The next morning, I was woken up by the feeling of my mom sitting on the foot of my bed. And I looked down, and there was my mom. She was sitting at my feet. She wasn't saying anything. And she had the newspaper in her hand. And I immediately was reminded of, last night. I mean, I woke up and I immediately remembered what was going on the night before, and I was already upset. And, but there's my mom sitting there, and I'm thinking, what is going on here? And my mom just wasn't fucking saying anything. And I think that my mom had this moment where she knew how close we were, and she loved Travis so much, still does. And I think my mom had this moment where she tried to go into that really maternal mode and protect me, and like the mom bear kind of thing. And she wanted to come straight to my room, and she wanted to let me know what was going on. And then I think that when she was sitting there and it came time for her to tell me what was going on, I think she realized that even she wasn't really capable of it. And she sort of threw the newspaper down on my bed, and she said, "He's never going to walk again." And she ran out of my room crying. And I picked up the newspaper and I started to read it. And the early indications of everything, we still got things by newspaper, by print at that point. And it looked as though it wasn't his legs that he was going to lose, but he had broken his neck at the fourth vertebrae, C4, and he was quadriplegic. And nothing was working from his neck down. I laid in my bed. I was 19 years old with this paper and with this news by myself. And I woke up to it. I don't remember the, 30 minutes that followed. I just don't remember them. I'm sure I probably sobbed. But I remember getting dressed and walking outside and just walking and walking by myself that day, and trying to fathom how this could be the case. I'll tell you that, like, the last time I saw him before the accident, I've literally never seen somebody in better physical condition. I've never seen somebody who did all the right things to take care of their body and to prepare themselves for this next opportunity, and to be so ready for it. And to I don't remember ever seeing that since. And the idea that that thing didn't work anymore, I couldn't, I couldn't understand it. It just was like way beyond me. And over the next few days, I took the task of starting to drive down to Boston, to the Boston University Hospital where he was. And the Boston University Hospital was in this suburb, this part of Boston called Roxbury, which is tough. It's a tough fucking part of town. It's no joke. And I got very explicit directions from his father of how to get in and what to be careful of. And like, I had been to Boston, but I'd never been into Roxbury. I had never seen a neighborhood like this. And like that in itself, to be driving down there alone at 19 and trying to park and then get up there to this room to see your friend several times over and over. But the first time, I just went up there and I saw him for the first time. It was fucked up. And they had to have, at that point, like he had a tracheotomy. He wasn't able to breathe on his own. He wasn't able to speak at that time. He had tubes through his nose and tubes through his esophagus to help try to clear his lungs. He wasn't able to speak. He was all of a sudden in a body that didn't work. And he had no way to speak. He had no way to communicate that to me or to his father or his mother or his girlfriend Maya or to anybody. He'd had no way to communicate that. He was stuck. And I, being a metalhead, I immediately went to that fucking video for One from Metallica, and just the terror of that person being stuck in a body. And I felt so fucking helpless. Not more helpless than he did, I'm sure. But I don't think I've ever felt that helpless in my life. We spent all those nights, those conversations on the dock where I was able to let him emote to me his fears about death and his fears about mortality. And we shared our fears about everything. I always found a way. I always had it in me to find some way to get inside his head just enough to turn his perspective a little bit, to focus on something that was more uplifting. And here I didn't know how to do that for the first time in my life. And so what we did for weeks, myself and his parents and his girlfriend, our closest friends, Chad and Maddie and, different guys from his dorm. And we just tried to stand there, I mean, shit, all of us, like most of us that are listening right now, right? We've all been through something in the hospital. We've been bedside with somebody when some really gnarly shit is going on. And I guess the only solace is like, we can have some communication. We can hold a hand and have a hand held back and cry together and express ourselves together and be able to work ourselves through this situation, right? Whether it's our mother or our grandparent or our sibling or whatever. That's largely our experience in this situation. Well, this was not like that. This was, all we could do was stare at each other and fucking cry. And that's pretty much all we did. And it gets way deeper than that. And I'm not even going to get into how fucking deep and dark it all got. But I'm going to say this. At a certain point, it occurred to me. This is the only reason I wanted to sit here and talk tonight, is to make this point. And I hope if one person hears this and this resonates with them, maybe they're in a time that it particularly needs to resonate with them. Maybe they're going to get met with this scenario a month from now or a year from now, and they'll remember me saying this. honestly, it's the only reason that I wanted to sit here and talk tonight. There reached a point when I realized, looking down at Travis, we were never going to go to the soccer field again. We were never going to go to the hockey rink again. Just the two of us, late at night while everybody else is out getting fucked up, and we're just going to skate around, and we're never doing that again. We're never going to play pinball again upstairs at the arcade. Shit, I'm never even going to shake his fucking hand again, let alone hug him. I'm never going to look him in like eye to eye standing up straight, okay? That all occurred to me at once. And I had that one fucking year of our life, which at this point was just 4 short years earlier. That 1 year that I spent like a stubborn fucking dickhead, like a total fucking, like just a fucking idiot. Why? Because he wore fucking Grateful Dead t-shirts. Like such a trivial, fucking inconsequential fucking thing. But I was so proud, like, you're not being yourself. And me, I'm myself. And I was like so, like, moronically fucking prideful about like how I could be myself, as though like it's just so easy for everybody else to be strong enough to be themselves. Just because it happened to be for me. And like, that should just be just as easy for Travis. And it's not. Like, everybody's got their fucking insecurities and their shit, right? And I spent that whole fucking year. That kid didn't say a word begrudgingly to me that entire year. He never said anything in poor taste about me. He never said anything. He just waited for me. That's all he did. He waited for me to come around and hoped I would. And I sat there for a year, and in a petty fucking way, I wasted this time. And among those 3 things that I regret in my life, I will tell you right now that those 300 and some odd days, if I could make one wish, and I mean this, honest to God, it would not be that I end up at the Grammy Awards. It would not be that I'm fucking rich. It would not be that, so many things I could go down the list. I would want 300 of those days back to go and kick a soccer ball and skate and run passing drills around the rink. And to go to the dock and just sit there. Like, we can't, simple things like we can't even go to that fucking dock anymore, He's in a fucking wheelchair, right? He's quadriplegic. Can't get down there. I'll never do that again. We'll never do that again. I hope we will. I have to be careful saying that sometimes, and that we never will. I hope that we will, and I believe that we will. And but those fucking days, man. So I tell people all the time, if it's your family, if it's your friends, do not hold your grudges. Don't hold your grudges with people who you love. And don't pull that shit where it's like, I don't love them anymore anyways. Fuck that. If you've ever told somebody that you love them, and if they've ever told you that they love you back, then that's somebody who you love, and that's somebody that you need to keep around. And that's somebody that you shouldn't waste your fucking time away with in your life. Because I'm telling you, man, it could be fucking tomorrow. You won't know it, believe me. You will not fucking know it when it happens. You won't know it's coming. You won't know the implications of it. it's just gonna fucking hit you. And I'll tell you this right now. You're either gonna know that you never wasted a moment to say how you felt. You never wasted a hug. You never wasted an hour of time. Or you're going to wish that you hadn't wasted those things. It's been about 20 years. I'm still standing here crying about it. It's never going to leave me. I will never stop regretting that 1 year of my life that I just spent grudging over some petty fucking shit. I may have had a point. I might have had a fucking axe to grind on the whole thing. I might have had a fucking point. You know what? I could have gone to him with that point. I could have talked to him about it. And I'll tell you what, he would have heard me. And it would have been way more productive for both of us. So, that's all I wanted to say. This shit, man, it is so, like, we've just got one fucking trip here. I watch people all the time get so wrapped up in dumb shit, and I catch myself doing it sometimes. You go to any of my closest friends that I've almost been here at this point with, and they'll tell you to a fucking person, I'm the one that goes and fucking shakes hands and says, I'm not going to let this go on any longer. Whatever it takes, I'm going to squash this. It's been 2 weeks. It's been 2 months, whatever. I'm not wasting time in our life. And that's what I'm just urging you guys to do. And there's going to be a lot to talk about with Travis coming up with this fundraiser and with his foundation in the next episode or two. So I'll tease that now, and coming up I'll tell you a lot more about what's going on now in his life, and I'm going to talk to you about how he's taken this situation and actually turned it into one of the most beautiful, graceful, incredible displays of strength, humanity, and just making the best of what you get handed. Again, you're online. If you don't already know about Travis Roy, you can Google him, you can YouTube him, and you can learn a lot very quickly and very easily. But that's my friend. That's my buddy. That's one of my most cherished friendships and relationships of my whole entire life. Maybe the most cherished relationship of my whole life. And it's not just because what I learned from him since the accident, which is immeasurable. It's about the greatest lesson I ever learned in my life, which was the fucking time I wasted before the accident. And it's not wasted time if I can turn it around, pass it out, stop somebody else from doing the same thing. All right? So I know, real, funny shit and all that stuff to wrap everything up this time. I'm not even going to get into subscribing and all of that shit. I don't even feel like talking about that stuff. I just hope that you've listened. I hope that if you needed to hear this, I hope it stops you in your tracks. I hope it makes you turn the situation around. That's all I can hope for. Next time, I'm going to talk about the bright side of this whole entire situation. And believe me, it may be hard for you to believe, but the bright side absolutely dwarfs and outshines this whole dark side the sadness of everything. There is an incredible, incredible, incredible story of triumph and lightness to talk about coming up. And that's what I'm going to get into next. For now, quit fucking around with your time, you guys. Quit fucking around with the people you love. Quit trying to stubbornly make your fucking point. Your point is so fucking insignificant in the relative scheme of your life with whoever you're trying to make your stubborn, dumb fucking point to. Believe me. Believe me, your point is completely irrelevant in comparison to your time and your experience together. Your life that you get to spend here and how you get to spend it. Don't be fucking stubborn. Don't be a fucking idiot. Bury the fucking hatchet. Do it today. If it's too late at night, do it tomorrow. Bury the hatchet now and go on loving and living together. Man, it's a lot of it to do. You can waste it really fucking easily. All right? I love you. And I'm sorry I put you through this. Thanks for sticking it out with me and listening to me. I feel better. Okay? Cut the shit, you guys. Cut the shit. Good night.